Hey guys, Mo Long here, and today we're going to take a look at running Batocera Linux on the Odroid XU4. Batocera is pretty similar to some other retro gaming distributions, including RetroPie and Recalbox. I love both of those two distros, and Batocera sort of straddles the line between them because it has a ton of different features for power users, like the ability to install different themes and custom bezels and really tailor the look and feel of Batocera to your liking. But it's also got a lot of the usability and user friendliness that you'll find with Recalbox. For instance, when you first boot into Batocera, you don't even need to map the buttons on your controller. You can just go ahead and start using it right away. So it's definitely one of my favorite operating systems for emulation. And one of the key reasons, aside from its vast feature set and ease of use, is the fact that there's just really active development, which is pretty important for maintaining excellent gameplay and taking advantage of the hardware that you're using. I really like the Odroid XU4 because it's pretty powerful for a single board computer. It's also very affordable, and there's a really solid user base. So there's active development for the XU4, and there are a lot of different accessories, including the OGST N64 style case, so you can kind of create your own N64 mini classic with an Odroid XU4. What we're going to do first up is we are going to download the Odroid XU4 Batocera image. So from the Batocera website, we're going to go over there to download. And you'll notice that Batocera is actually available for a ton of different platforms, including x86 and x64 PCs, Mac OS devices, NUCs, pretty much every version of the Raspberry Pi that you can think of, and a number of different Odroid boards, including the C2, the N2, the Odroid Go Advance, which is a super cool little portable handheld game console. It's also available for some Rock chip boards like the Rock Pro 64, which I absolutely love. And you can run it on the Tinkerboard and a bunch of different AM Logic S905 variants. And since we're going to run this on the Odroid XU4, we're going to get this Odroid installer here. And then we'll mount it to a micro SD card. Now that we've downloaded that Odroid XU4 Batocera image, we're going to need to mount that to a micro SD card, and I'm going to use Etcher to do that. Etcher can actually mount compressed images, so we don't even need to decompress that image.gz file. So first up, let's select our image. We've got our image selected. Then you'll need to select your boot medium, in this case, your micro SD card. So I've got mine selected. I wouldn't recommend using anything smaller than an 8 gig micro SD card, and you're probably going to want a much larger micro SD if you are storing all of your ROMs on that micro SD card internally. If you're using an external flash drive or USB storage device, then 8 gigs should be fine, but just to be safe, you might even want to up it to 16 or 32 gigs so that you can download whatever updates you want, download more bezels or more themes. But once we have our image selected and our micro SD card selected, we're going to hit flash. And that will start mounting our image. So just give this a few minutes to finish mounting. And when you are done, pop that into your Odroid board and boot it up. Okay, here we are in Batocera on the Odroid XU4. And my controller, it's just a generic iBuffalo classic USB gamepad, Super Nintendo style. Worked right out of the box. I didn't even have to map my controls. And one of the first things I'd recommend doing is turning off that front end music. I do really like it, but it can also be a little loud. So just launch the menu, press the start button to launch the menu, go down to sound settings, and then you can toggle on and off the front end music. By default, you're going to have a few different emulators that will show up. There are a lot of other emulators that are already installed, but those aren't going to show up unless you have any ROMs for those systems in the appropriate folders. You'll have a lot of different settings that you can mess around with, like game settings, such as setting the ratio, smoothing games, rewinding, auto-load and save, as well as setting shaders. Like I mentioned, there are a lot of different custom shaders that you can use, from adding scan lines to enhancing and giving sort of a curvature. You can get connected to the network. The Odroid XU4 does not have Wi-Fi built in, so if you do want to use Wi-Fi, you're gonna have to use either Ethernet instead of Wi-Fi for internet, or you're gonna have to use a USB Wi-Fi adapter. You can scrape your ROMs and add box art as well as metadata for your different ROMs. And you can choose to either scrape from Screen Scraper or the Games DB. If you choose Screen Scraper, you can select from a lot of different options, like the image source, such as a screenshot, title screenshot, some different mixes, a 2D box, a 3D box. You can select your box source and your logo source. And you can pick if you want to scrape ratings, and you can also toggle on the ability to scrape videos. If you do have a Screen Scraper account, you can enter your username and your password. If we go here under System Settings, you'll be able to change some different things like the default language. You can select your video output and audio output, overclocking information, and you can pick your storage device. So internal would be your micro SD card or eMMC module. You can select any external so that if you plug in any USB device, all of your Batocera data like ROMs and whatnot will be stored on that. Or if you have a specific device that you plug in, you can use that. So I'm going to go ahead and add some games. Here we are back in Batocera on the Odroid XU4, and I've loaded up a ton of different games. So now that I've loaded ROMs for a lot of these systems, you will actually be able to see them show up in the front end. So we've got a lot of Atari 2600 ROMs, and there are a few different ways that you can actually view your games. So these are some tiles here. And you can change the game list view style. Since I've scraped all my ROMs, I do have box art for pretty much every ROM on here. So you can also go with basic, and that'll just be the different ROM names. Detailed, and you'll see ROM names along with game descriptions and box art. A grid like this. There's also a cool little carousel here. Boxes. And of course those tiles. There are a lot of different options that you can pick here. Like those shaders. We can select different decorations here. We can choose from a couple different themes. And you can even set stuff like the default game list style for every single system on here, or you can pick custom game list styles for each of the different systems. Let's go ahead and take a look at some gameplay. Well, there's Batocera on the Odroid XU4. And as you can see, not every game is going to run perfectly, but the performance really is impressive when you consider how well this little board runs even mini N64 and PSP games. You're not going to be able to play every single one of the games in those libraries. For instance, the notoriously difficult God of War Chains of Olympus just isn't really going to run well on the Odroid. And you even heard some choppy audio in a few spots on GoldenEye 64, although I will say the visuals were really lovely. So what you can expect is excellent performance in a lot of these older systems like Atari 2600, Super Nintendo, NES, of course, and any PlayStation 1 game that you're going to throw at this board should run perfectly well. And that just means that there are a lot of different systems that you can emulate perfectly. Like ColecoVision, Daphne, and Dreamcast are going to work really well. Final Burn Alpha, Game Gear, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Intellivision, Lynx, Sega Master System, Sega Mega Drive. So there you have it. If you are using an Odroid XU4 and looking for a way to play retro games, I highly recommend checking out Batocera. It's one of those distros that just simply works. And getting started with it is really easy, especially since you don't even need to map the buttons on your controller. Thanks for watching, guys. Happy gaming.